Andrew and Tristan Tate are currently in federal custody in Florida after a court ruled they will remain detained while they fight extradition to the United Kingdom. The brothers, high-profile supporters of Donald Trump and self-described misogynists, we have photos of them we can show you, are prominent members of the manosphere who use their influence to promote male dominance. And it's allegedly more than just words, according to newly unsealed federal filings that detail the charges being brought by UK prosecutors between 2010 and 2017. The brothers are also accused of choking women, sometimes until they passed out, and then raping them. They also face accusations of trafficking women. Their attorney, Joseph McBride, says that Marco Rubio and the rest of the Trump administration are not fans of, quote, prosecuting people for free speech, and he hopes the administration will intervene.
We are, of course, objecting to extradition because Andrew and Tristan are innocent. They've never done nothing wrong. They shouldn't be extradited for crimes they did not commit. Politically motivated? I think any one of these trees or any one of these rocks could answer that question. Yes, it's politically motivated. There's no question about it.
This is not the first round of allegations. Romanian prosecutors have been investigating the brothers since 2022, accusing them of forming an organized crime group and trafficking women. Here they are.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Dr. John Podcast. So this is happening right now. Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by federal agents in Miami, and the White House has confirmed Trump will not intervene, allowing extradition to proceed. The brothers had ties to Trump's inner circle. Trump Jr. once called Tate's detention absolute insanity, making the administration's refusal to step in a notable break. And now, when it actually matters, when there's a real arrest and a real extradition fight on the table, the White House is basically saying, not our problem, let the courts handle it. This is wild. This is the kind of political whiplash that makes people's heads spin because it seems so contradictory on the surface. One moment you've got family members defending these guys, the next moment you've got the administration running in the opposite direction.
Andrew Tate also faced rape charges there, though a court threw out that case. Now the UK's Crown Prosecution Service says they're seeking extradition for the brothers. The question now is, will the Trump administration intervene like the lawyer wants? As the New Yorker reports, the Tates have an in through Donald Trump's sons. Andrew Tate forged relationships with Barron and Donald Trump Jr. in the weeks before the 2024 vote, as Andrew Tate pushed pro-MAGA content and helped mobilize young men in big numbers for Trump. Kamala Harris even credited Tate as a key factor in her defeat. And it was after Trump's inauguration that Andrew Tate predicted he would get past these charges, posting on X, quote, "The Tates will be free. Trump is the president." Since the election and inauguration, the Tates have been running in the same circles as other Trump allies. Just days before their arrest, the brothers were at a party for Paolo Zampoli, Trump's special envoy for global partnerships. And Vice President J.D. Vance follows both Andrew and Tristan on X. They are just two of 1,500 people that the vice president follows on the platform. Not very many follows there. Despite those connections, the State Department says they have no plans to act on behalf of the Tate brothers.
But if you look closer, and we're going to do that together today, you'll see that this actually makes perfect sense given the stakes involved. The legal situation here is completely different from what Trump Jr. commented on before. And the political calculation for the White House is entirely different when the allegations are this serious and the arrest is happening on American soil. Stick around because we're going to break this whole thing down, and by the end, you're going to understand exactly why the White House made this choice and what it means for everyone involved. Let's break down what we actually know, because the facts here matter more than the internet drama that's going to explode around this story. Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by federal agents in Miami. That part is confirmed by multiple news outlets covering the arrest and the events that followed. Forbes reported that Trump would not stop the extradition process for the Tate brothers. And that report came straight from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. So this isn't some anonymous source or a rumor floating around social media. This is the White House on the record saying Trump is staying out of it.
Breaking news to get to, though, as this is coming into our newsroom just in the last couple of moments. This post coming from TMZ saying, breaking, Andrew and Tristan Tate have been arrested in Miami. We also have this post coming from the New York Post. Manosphere influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate arrested by U.S. Marshals in Florida. The Associated Press is reporting influencer brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by federal authorities on Saturday in Miami. That's according to the U.S. Marshals Service. The charges against the pair were not immediately announced, but a spokesperson for the Marshals Service is telling the Associated Press that the warrant was sealed. I want to put up some video on your screen right now of the charges.
And it gets even more direct than that. NBC Miami reported that Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Trump administration had, and I want you to really hear this, quote, no role in the arrest of the Tate brothers. So you've got two separate officials, Leavitt and Rubio, both distancing the administration from this whole situation. No involvement in the arrest, no plan to intervene in the extradition. Basically, the message from the White House is, we are not touching this with a 10-foot pole. We are running in the opposite direction as fast as we possibly can. Now, here's where it gets spicy, because this is not the first time Trump World has talked about the Tate brothers. Back in 2025, BBC reported that Trump Jr. called Tate's detention in Romania absolute insanity. That's a pretty strong statement.
Coming in from the Crown Prosecution Service, who has decided to bring additional charges against the brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate. Following their arrest, prosecutors will seek extradition in relation to the original charges and the further charges.
That's not just staying neutral. That's actively defending Tate and criticizing the legal action against him. So when you put that quote next to what's happening right now, the White House staying completely hands-off on a brand new arrest, you start to see a pretty big gap between what Trump's own family said before and what the administration is doing now. And look, we get why this feels confusing to a lot of people. For years, the Tate brothers built this massive online following, partly by tying themselves to the same political language, the same us versus them energy that Trump's own movement has used. So when their biggest online supporters see the White House stepping back now, some of them feel betrayed, like their guy just got left out to dry. Meanwhile, on the other side,
they have authorized. So just reading from their website, once again, they're deciding to bring those further charges against the brothers, Andrew and Tristan Tate, in relation to 4 further victims. The CPS deciding to prosecute Andrew Tate, who is 39, with 7 further counts of rape, 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation, 3 counts of assault, and bodily harm, and 19 additional charges for offenses relating to indecent images of children and extreme pornography. The CPS deciding to prosecute Tristan Tate, who is 38 years old, with 1 count of sexual assault, 2 counts of rape, and 3 counts of arranging or facilitating trafficking for sexual exploitation. The offending is alleged to have taken place between July of 2010 and August of 2017. So we wanted to be sure to bring you that breaking news, as Andrew and Tristan Tate have been arrested by the U.S. Marshals Service in Miami. That breaking news just coming in moments ago. We are going to slide away right now for a quick 2-minute commercial break. Our coverage continuing in moments, so stay close.
People who've never trusted the Tate brothers for one single second are looking at this and going, finally, some accountability. So this story is landing in 2 totally different ways depending on who's watching it. And that's exactly why it's blowing up online right now. So here's the real hook for this video. This isn't a story about Trump suddenly turning on the Tate brothers or throwing them under the bus. It's actually way more interesting than that. It's a story about political distance, about how when the cameras are really on and the legal stakes are this high, even people who once defended the Tates in public are choosing to step back instead of getting involved. It's about the difference between speaking up in a foreign country and intervening in a federal case on American soil. It's about the moment when the theoretical support meets the actual legal reality. Stick around, because we're going to dig into why this story is so much bigger than one arrest and why most people watching the headlines are missing the real tension underneath it. Let's slow down here because this story gets misread constantly online. A lot of people are going to see Trump won't intervene in Tate extradition and jump straight to one of two extreme conclusions. Either they think Trump secretly wants to help the Tates, and this is just political cover, or they think Trump has completely abandoned anyone connected to that whole online world. And honestly, neither one of those extremes tells you the real story. Let's actually walk through it step by step. First, let's get the basic facts locked in, because they matter enormously. Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by federal agents in Miami. That's confirmed through multiple news outlets covering the arrest and the events that followed. Once that arrest happened, all eyes turned to the White House because everybody wanted to know, is Trump going to do anything about this? Is he going to make a call? Is he going to pressure anyone? And the answer, according to Forbes citing White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt directly, was a clear no. Trump will not stop the extradition process. The legal system is going to run its course. And then you've got Secretary of State Marco Rubio backing that up even further. NBC Miami reported that Rubio said the administration had, and we're quoting here, no role in the arrest itself. So this isn't just one official saying we're staying out of it going forward. You've got the top diplomat in the country saying the administration wasn't even involved in the arrest happening in the first place. That's a pretty firm line being drawn, and it's being drawn by more than one person, which tells you this is a coordinated message, not just one offhand comment from someone who wasn't thinking carefully about what they were saying. Now, here's where most people get the story wrong, and this is really important to understand. A lot of folks online are treating this like some shock and betrayal. Like Trump world spent years cozying up to the Tate brothers and now is suddenly slamming the door shut. But that's not really an accurate read of the timeline. Yeah, Trump Jr. did call Tate's detention in Romania absolute insanity back in 2025. According to BBC reporting, that's real. That happened. But that comment was about detention overseas in a completely different country under completely different legal circumstances. This new situation is a federal arrest right here in Miami under United States law with an active extradition fight happening. Those are two very different legal situations, even if the names involved are the same. So here's the nuance a lot of people miss completely. Defending someone's treatment in a foreign legal system is not the same thing as intervening in a domestic federal arrest. One is basically a political opinion thrown out into the world. The other would be actual interference in an active law enforcement and extradition process. The kind of interference that could open up a massive can of worms both legally and politically. So when the White House says they won't intervene now, it's not necessarily some giant reversal from what Trump Jr. said before. It's a completely different kind of situation with completely different stakes attached to it. Let's talk about why this distancing makes sense from a pure political survival standpoint. Because, come on, that's clearly part of what's happening here. The Tate brothers have faced serious allegations over the years, including sex trafficking allegations that have followed them across multiple countries and multiple legal systems. That is not a small or easy topic to attach yourself to publicly. If Trump or anyone close to him tried to intervene in an active federal case involving allegations like that, it would hand critics an enormous easy target. It would turn into a massive story about the administration protecting controversial figures accused of serious crimes. So, staying hands off here isn't just about respecting the legal process. It's also just smart, basic political self-preservation. And this is where the bigger picture comes into focus, because this story isn't really about the Tate brothers themselves. It's about how Trump manages its relationship with the broader online influencer ecosystem that's grown up around it over the past several years. There's a whole world of controversial internet personalities who have orbited around Trump's political brand at different points. Some more closely than others, some just borrowing the imagery and language without any real connection. And every single time one of those figures runs into serious legal trouble, it creates this exact same tension. Do you defend them and risk getting dragged into their controversy? Or do you distance yourself and risk looking like you're abandoning people who supported you? This is a pattern, not a one-off moment. And honestly, it's one of the trickiest parts of modern political messaging, because the same online spaces that generate enthusiasm and attention also generate liability. The second any of those personalities crosses a serious legal line, and federal sex trafficking allegations are about as serious a legal line as you can cross, it makes total sense that the response here is careful, distant, and deliberately hands-off, rather than anything resembling public support. Let's also be honest about something a lot of people avoid saying directly. This is exactly the kind of story where sensational headlines can run way ahead of the actual facts. It would be easy for some viral video to claim Trump secretly ordered the arrest, or claim the White House is quietly working behind the scenes to help the Tates escape extradition. Neither of those claims is backed up by anything in the actual reporting. What's documented is pretty simple. Federal agents made an arrest. The extradition process started, and two separate officials said on the record that the administration isn't stepping in. Everything beyond that is speculation, and speculation is exactly the kind of thing that turns a real news story into a confusing mess online. Now let's talk about something else that gets buried in all this: the actual extradition process itself. Because that's the part most viral headlines skip right over. Extradition isn't some instant thing where a country asks and boom, someone gets shipped off the next day. It's a legal process. It involves courts. It involves treaties between countries. It involves hearings where the person facing extradition can challenge the process. So when the White House says they won't intervene, what they're really saying is we're going to let the normal legal machinery work the way it's designed to work, instead of using political pressure to speed it up or slow it down. And can you believe this? That's actually kind of a boring normal thing for an administration to say. Letting the legal process play out without political interference is, in theory, exactly how the system is supposed to function. The reason this feels like a big story isn't because the White House is doing something unusual. It's because of who's involved. It's because Trump Jr. previously spoke sympathetically about one of these exact same guys. It's the contrast between past comments and current silence that makes this newsworthy, not the actual legal position itself. Let's also talk about the media ecosystem piece of this, because it matters more than people think. Andrew Tate didn't build his following through traditional media. He built it through short clips, podcast appearances, and a massive network of accounts that clip and repost his content constantly. That kind of media presence doesn't just disappear because of an arrest. If anything, arrests like this one tend to supercharge the content cycle because now every single account in that network has a brand new dramatic story to talk about. So even while the White House stays quiet, the online conversation around this arrest is going to keep growing louder for weeks, completely separate from anything the administration actually says or does. And here's something worth thinking about. Silence from the White House doesn't mean silence everywhere else in Trump's orbit. Official statements from press secretaries and cabinet members are one thing, but there are plenty of pundits, commentators, and online personalities loosely connected to that same political world who might still speak up in defense of the Tate brothers, completely separate from any official position. So don't be surprised if over the next few weeks you see a split even within Trump-adjacent media. Official channels staying quiet, while unofficial voices keep pushing a very different message. That gap between official positioning and unofficial commentary is honestly one of the most interesting parts of this entire story. So let's connect this to the bigger picture one more time before we move into the breakdown. This story sits right at the intersection of three things people care a lot about: Trump's political relationships, controversial online figures, and serious criminal allegations involving sex trafficking. That combination is basically rocket fuel for a culture war story. And when you add in the fact that Trump's own family previously defended one of these guys publicly, you've got a story with just enough tension to keep people arguing about it for days. In the next part, we're going to break this whole thing down into simple, clear points so you understand exactly what's real, what's just noise, and what to actually watch for next. All right, so let's break it down, because there's a lot of noise around this story, and it's easy to lose the real facts in all the online arguing. Let's simplify this into clear points. The arrest itself is real and confirmed. Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested by federal agents in Miami. This isn't some rumor circulating on social media. This is a documented federal arrest, and it kicked off the entire extradition process that's now playing out. Whatever you think about the Tate brothers, whatever you think about their online persona, the starting point of this story is a real legal action taken by real federal agents. The White House is choosing distance, not defense. Forbes reported, citing Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt directly, that Trump will not step in to stop the extradition process. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the administration had no role in the arrest itself. So you've got two separate on-the-record statements from two different officials, both drawing the same clear line. This administration is staying out of it. That's not a small detail. That's a deliberate, coordinated political choice. There's real tension between past comments and current silence. And that's exactly why this story is getting attention. Back in 2025, BBC reported that Trump Jr. called Andrew Tate's detention in Romania absolute insanity. That was a real public statement of sympathy toward Tate at a moment when he was facing legal trouble overseas. Now, with a brand new federal arrest happening right here in the United States, the administration's response is total silence on defending him and a clear statement of non-intervention. That shift from public sympathy to official distance is the actual news story here, way more than the arrest itself. The sex trafficking allegations are the real reason this is politically sensitive, and that's something a lot of coverage tries to gloss over. The Tate brothers have faced serious sex trafficking allegations across multiple countries and multiple legal proceedings over the past several years. Those are not minor accusations. Those are the kind of allegations that make any political figure extremely careful about how closely they associate themselves with someone facing them. So the White House choosing to stay hands-off here isn't just about respecting legal process in some abstract sense. It's also about avoiding a massive backlash story that could follow Trump and his allies for months if they were seen defending someone facing charges that serious. So let's talk about why this actually matters beyond just this one arrest. This story is a perfect example of something that keeps happening in modern politics. The tension between online influencer culture and serious legal accountability. Controversial internet personalities build huge audiences, sometimes millions of followers. And along the way, they end up orbiting around political movements, borrowing language, borrowing imagery, sometimes even getting public shout-outs from people close to major political figures. But the second one of those personalities faces something as serious as federal sex trafficking allegations. That entire relationship gets tested. And what we're seeing here is basically the answer to that test: distance, not defense. It's also worth pointing out how unusual it actually is to see two separate high-level officials address the same controversial story within a single day of each other. Caroline Leavitt, speaking on behalf of the White House, and Marco Rubio, speaking as Secretary of State, both landed on the exact same message within about 24 hours. That kind of alignment doesn't happen by accident. It usually means there was already a plan in place for how to respond if this exact situation came up, which tells you the administration was clearly aware this could become a politically sensitive moment the second an arrest happened. Let's talk about who benefits from this kind of careful distancing, because that's worth thinking about. The administration benefits because they avoid getting dragged into a controversy involving serious criminal allegations. Critics who wanted to paint Trump world as protecting controversial figures now don't have as clean a story to tell because officials are on the record saying they're staying out of it. And honestly, even the legal process itself benefits in the sense that it gets to run without political pressure being applied from the very top of government, which is, again, how it's technically supposed to work in the first place. And let's be real about what doesn't change here. The Tate brothers still have supporters. There's still a whole online ecosystem of people who believe they're being unfairly targeted, who see this as political persecution rather than a legitimate legal process. That crowd isn't going anywhere, and this White House statement isn't going to change their minds. On the flip side, critics who followed the sex trafficking allegations closely for years aren't going to suddenly trust the process just because the administration says it's staying hands-off. So this story doesn't really settle anything for anybody. It just adds one more data point to an already deeply divided online argument. Let's also talk about the timeline question, because that's what everybody's going to be watching next. Extradition cases can take weeks, sometimes months, depending on how many legal challenges get filed and how the courts decide to handle them. So this isn't a story that wraps up next week with a neat little bow on it. This is going to be a slow burn with hearings, filings, and probably a whole lot of online commentary in between every single update. And every time there's a new hearing or a new filing, you can bet this same political tension is going to resurface. Is Trump world going to say anything, or are they going to keep staying quiet the whole way through? There's also a bigger lesson buried in this story about how political brands try to protect themselves in the internet era. It used to be that political figures could just avoid saying anything about controversial online personalities and mostly get away with it. But now, because so many of these figures build their entire following inside overlapping spaces, silence itself becomes a statement. Staying quiet on the Tate brothers doesn't erase the past connections. It just shifts the story from are they defending them to why won't they say anything at all? And that kind of ambiguity tends to keep a story alive a lot longer than a clear, direct statement would. So here's the big picture in the simplest terms possible. Andrew and Tristan Tate got arrested by federal agents in Miami. The White House, through both Caroline Leavitt and Marco Rubio, made it clear that Trump is not going to intervene in the extradition process. That stands in real contrast to past comments from Trump Jr. defending Tate's treatment overseas. And underneath all of it sits the serious ongoing sex trafficking allegations that make this such a politically sensitive situation for anyone connected to Trump's political orbit. This isn't a story about a shocking betrayal or a secret plan to protect anyone. It's a story about political distance, legal process, and just how carefully modern political figures have to manage their connections to controversial online personalities. And one more thing worth remembering before we wrap up. Stories like this one tend to reveal more about the people reacting to them than they do about the actual news itself. How you feel about the White House staying quiet probably depends a lot more on how you already felt about the Tate brothers than on any new fact revealed here. That's worth keeping in mind the next time a headline like this shows up in your feed, because the loudest reactions online usually aren't about the facts at all. They're about which side people already picked a long time ago. We're going to keep watching this one closely because extradition fights can drag on for months. And if new details come out about what federal investigators actually have on the Tate brothers, this story is going to get a whole lot bigger.